who should run in 2020? There are clearly plenty of Democrats who would do well to take up the mantle against Trump, but before we can do a thorough assessment of who is best suited for the role, we need to cut through the fat. In this video, I'm going to propose 10 potential candidates that I believe Democrats would do well to forget about, at least when it comes to 2020. So just to be straight up with you guys, I was a Bernie supporter in 2016, and that should give you a good sense of where I'm coming from politically.
A progressive agenda, universal health care, education reform, granting so-called dreamers citizenship status, as well as criminal justice reform and legalizing marijuana.
I'm very much on the progressive side of the Democratic Party, but for the purposes of this video, I'm not just cutting conservative, moderate, and establishment Democrats. I really just want to eliminate impractical options. In that spirit, the very first person on my list is Beto ORourke.
The freedoms that we have were purchased not just by those in uniform, and they definitely were, but also by those who took their lives into their hands riding those Greyhound buses, the Freedom Riders.
Don't get me wrong, I think this guy will have an amazing future in politics. He's charming, charismatic, well-spoken, and strong.
And I can think of nothing more American than to peacefully stand up or take a knee for your rights anytime, anywhere, any place.
Beto had a surprisingly good showing in his Senate race against Ted Cruz, losing by just 200,000 or 3% of the vote. In Texas, generally considered a Republican stronghold, that's pretty astounding. Even more so because he didn't run as a moderate Texas Democrat. He ran as a solidly progressive candidate. You could easily argue that if he had come so close in Texas, of all places, he could easily win over purple states like Florida, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Well, I wouldn't be so sure. One thing that really should be noted is that his race in Texas was a little easier than you might generally expect. Sure, Texas is a red state, but demographic shifts have edged the state closer to contention. That is, Texas is bluer than it used to be, and this had long been predicted. More importantly, we have to consider who he was running against.
Lies, oh, he lies. You know, Ted, he brings the Bible, holds it high, puts it down, lies.
According to a study from October of 2018 conducted by a publication called The Morning Consult, Ted Cruz is a middle-of-the-road senator with an approval rating of 49% and disapproval of 35%. According to the Texas Politics Project poll conducted by the University of Texas, Austin in the same month, those numbers were more like 51% versus 44%. That same survey, which went a little bit more in depth, found that Ted Cruz was quite polarizing. While 72% of Republicans and 24% of independents found him very favorable, 83% of Democrats and 39% of independents found him very unfavorable. By ideology, 71% of conservatives found him very favorable, while 88% of liberals and 54% of moderates found him very unfavorable. With a character as polarizing as Cruz, it's hard to give Beto all the credit for how well he did in the Senate race. Very likely a lot of the people who are voting for Beto were actually voting to dump Cruz.
If the president attacks you personally, your wife, your father, how you respond is your business.
Still, I don't want to underestimate Beto. With more nationwide exposure, he may look like a stronger candidate. But having lost his Senate race, his prospects for 2020 are significantly weakened. If he runs, he'll be running not as a junior senator like Obama did, he'll be running as a two-term congressman who almost beat Ted Cruz. At 46 years old, Beto has plenty of time to build up more accomplishments, which could lead to a more successful run in 2024 or 2028. And by the way, I am hoping that he does that. But as for 2020, I don't know if he's quite ready, and a premature run could exhaust his star power. I have very similar thoughts about the next person on my list, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I can't let you go! She's looking at herself on television right now. How are you feeling? Can you put it into words?
Nope. I cannot put this into words.
Again, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love AOC. I think she's a strong fighter with serious star power. As a Latina woman with strong progressive positions, she very likely represents the future of the Democratic Party. But that's where she belongs, the future. AOC has just entered federal politics and will assume her office for her first term on January 3rd, 2019. She very clearly does not have the experience to run for president, plus she's too young. AOC is just 29 years old. She's not just too young to be perceived as experienced enough for the role, she's literally too young to run by the standards set out by the Constitution. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained the age of 35 years old. So that settles that. I would definitely keep my eye on her for the future in like a decade or two, but the idea of her running now is, well, a joke. Speaking of joke candidates, Oprah Winfrey.
President, that's out.
Definitely, where do I look into the camera?
Wherever, they're all over.
I am definitely not running.
Now I love Oprah, because I am a human being.
So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon.
Everyone loves Oprah. Her legion of fans would easily translate into a political movement that could overpower Trumpism. Never mind the fact that she's explicitly stated that she doesn't want to run for president.
Definitely not running.
She's got a lot of what it takes. She's smart, strong, successful, popular, and unlike the current president, she's actually a billionaire. But she also shares something in common with the president, which I think should disqualify her. She's never held public office. The Democrats should not be trying to turn celebrities into politicians. They should be trying to make politicians so popular that they are seen as celebrities. This is what happened with presidents like FDR, Kennedy, and Obama. Sure, Republicans have successfully run celebrities like Reagan, Schwarzenegger, and Trump, but Democrats should attack that tendency. In 2020, the Democratic Party should argue that Trump was a famous person with no experience, and that's why he failed as president. That argument disappears if they elect to run Oprah or any other inexperienced famous person.
I have decided in 2020...
Obviously, even if Kanye is a Democrat again, we shouldn't run him either. There are easily hundreds, if not thousands, of famous people whose values align with the Democratic Party. But one of them should not run for president until they get some real experience in government. Were it not for his Me Too scandal, Al Franken would have been the only Democratic celebrity qualified to run for president. As it now stands, there are zero. And that includes not just famous entertainers, but also famous lawyers, including Michael Avenatti.
I mean, I've traveled to 15 states over the last few months. I've raised money for Democrats. I've been active in getting out the vote for Democrats in connection with the midterms. I'm seriously considering running in 2020.
Avenatti is very likely to run, and it would be a real shame if he did. I know he vehemently denies the recent domestic violence allegations that have been made against him, but even without that, the guy kind of reads scumbag. Sorry, that's just how he comes up. Some think he would be a powerful weapon against Trump because, just like him, Avenatti is an aggressive fighter. But we shouldn't be fighting hate with a different kind of hate. I'm sure Avenatti would do well at pointing out why people shouldn't vote for Trump, and I hope he does that even if he doesn't run. But how would he possibly make a positive case for himself? Avenatti has never held public office. He's never even run. He has experience in law, business, and even professional racing, but virtually zero in politics. The only reason he's even seen as a potential candidate is because he sued Trump on behalf of Stormy Daniels. How exactly is a porn star's lawyer qualified to run for president? Next up, let's talk about Martin O'Malley.
The urgent call for a more sustainable future and also urbanization are now joined in one critical movement.
This guy definitely has the experience to run for president, having been the governor of Maryland from 2007 to 2015 and mayor of Baltimore prior to that. I'm pretty sure he's not gonna run. He's apparently become a law professor at Boston College, and I haven't seen him teasing a run, so let's keep it that way. O'Malley had his chance in 2016 and came in a very, very distant third. He introduced himself to the nation and America yawned. Ditto for Lincoln Chafee and Jim Webb. No one cares.
Thanks to you, we owned the ground. Thanks to you.
Nancy Pelosi is currently facing a leadership challenge in the House, and that doesn't exactly bode well for her political future, even if she does win it. Pelosi has very strong name recognition, but it isn't very positive name recognition. The fact is, she's incredibly unpopular. RCP's poll aggregations place her at 28.5% favorable and 52% unfavorable. Wow. You would be extremely hard-pressed to find a candidate more hated than Nancy Pelosi. But someone who comes kind of close is the Democratic leader in the Senate.
Judge Kavanaugh gave answers about his yearbook page, supposed drinking games, and high school behavior that simply defy credulity.
Chuck Schumer is not as hated as Nancy Pelosi, but he's not well liked either. RCP's averages put him at exactly 29.0% favorable and 43.3% unfavorable. The Senate is generally speaking a great place to find presidential candidates, but the Democratic Party would be much better served by a popular senator like Bernie Sanders, Patrick Leahy, Amy Klobuchar, or Angus King, all of whom rank in the 50s and 60s in terms of approval. But popularity isn't the only thing that matters. Take Eric Garcetti.
Navajo code talkers and women on assembly lines and Japanese American GIs whose families were in internment camps won a war led by a president who couldn't walk.
He's teased a presidential run and has even ranked on top 10 lists for potential candidates. I get the appeal. He's very popular in Los Angeles, having received over 81% of the vote in the last election. At the same time, the guy did not exactly inspire a huge fan base, with voting turnout at just 20%. So Garcetti is clearly popular amongst LA voters who always vote, but he failed to drive a strong turnout. He's also not exactly well known nationwide. I would imagine name recognition would be a serious problem for him. As a mayor of a major city, he's probably well known throughout California, but I don't know how that would translate into victories in the Carolinas, Florida, or the Midwest. The fact is, no big city mayor has ever been able to make a direct leap into the White House. CNN put Garcetti on their top 10 list for 2020, but not everyone CNN likes has real potential. Which brings us to number 4 on that CNN list, Kirsten Gillibrand.
If we are not helping people, we should go the home.
With an approval rating of 45%, according to a Morning Consult survey, she is the second most popular senator from New York. Schumer got 48% in that same poll. Now, I don't fully trust their polls, but even bad polling should put someone far and away better than Chuck Schumer if they stand a chance of winning the 2020 election. My main problem with Gillibrand is that I think she'll be seen as a fake progressive. In my experience, the left can be quite picky when it comes to supporting a candidate. Gillibrand has problematic donors, with Wall Street firms like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan Chase ranking in her top 10 donors. Her top donor is a law firm called, I think it's Boies, Schiller, and Flexner. And they've done great work in the past, but they were also the law firm that represented Harvey Weinstein. But her biggest issue is how late in the game she became a progressive. She's gotten some credit from the left because she was the first senator to call for abolishing ICE, but as even CNN points out, Gillibrand has moved way left during her time in the Senate, but will have to answer for several years of much more moderate votes when she represented a more conservative House district in upstate New York. Gillibrand is a white female senator from New York who has recently adopted more progressive policy positions. That reminds me just a little bit of someone else who failed to win over the left wing last time around.
Do you want to run again?
No.
Wait.
No.
That was a pause.
Well, I'd like to be president.
Okay.
Look, I get it. Clinton won the primary last time and the popular vote in the general election. Virtually everyone who ever worked for her says that she was a great boss. She has huge name recognition, and a lot of people regret voting for Trump. At the same time, she also has the distinction of being the only person in human history to lose an election to Donald J. Trump. And while her supporters blame James Comey and Russian collusion on her loss, the reality is that pretty much everything that made her lose the last time will make her lose again if she ran in 2020. First, there's NAFTA. She was a huge proponent, and that's a big reason why she failed to lock down the Midwest. She's vulnerable everywhere from Wisconsin to Pennsylvania because blue-collar workers blame her for failing to protect their manufacturing jobs. That may be unfair, but it is what it is. Again, fair or unfair, most people see Clinton as a symbol for political corruption. The hundreds of thousands of dollars she was paid by Wall Street firms for single speeches is seen by most folks as legal bribery. I know that's not a lot of money for Hillary Clinton, but try telling voters that hundreds of thousands of dollars means nothing to you. It's hard to make that argument to people who have been suffering with stagnant wages for decades. Trump supporters would probably love the chance to go back to the polls and defeat her for a second time. And the left wing of the party remains completely unenthusiastic about her. Sure, they may feel more of an imperative to go to the polls now that Trump has proven himself a serious contender, but then again, any candidate running against Trump would activate the anti-Trump vote. Back during her days as Secretary of State, Clinton saw high favorability numbers, hitting as high as 66%, but her favorability has been on the decline ever since. As recent as September of 2018, a Gallup poll found her at a record low of just 36% favorable. Even after a year of Trump, who continues to have low approval ratings himself, voters aren't clamoring for another Clinton run. Although I doubt she'll heed this advice, it's time for Clinton to give up her presidential ambitions and pass the baton on to the next generation. Thanks for watching this video. If you disagree with anything I've said, be sure to call me a cuck in the comments section. That really hurts my feelings. But if you really want to get me, hit that subscribe button and share this video with your like-minded friends. That'll show me.